This episode of UK Low Carb Podcast is sponsored by Deliciously Guilt-Free. Enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, very excited because I'm joined by Ilja Drost, and Ilja actually used to live very close to me. She's now back in the Netherlands where she comes from originally, but she used to come to visit the cafe where Deliciously Guilt-Free was based for a while, and then I know her husband very well through politics because he's a member of the Labour Party. And in fact, he was my boss because he was the chair of the whole party in my area. So I feel a bit differential in this podcast. But it's particularly nice for me, the fact that I know Ilja and I can share her story with you, which I think is really unique. So I will stop talking now, Ilja. Thank you for coming to UK Low Carb. Welcome. And I hope you're having a great day.
I am, yes.
Great, fantastic. What's the weather like over there? I know you probably don't get as many British weather questions as you did when you're living here, but now you're back over there. I'm interested anyway. Is it a nice day this September morning?
It still is very nice. Yeah, we had a lovely weekend and it's sort of getting a bit worse now, but we're still doing okay with the sunshine.
Yeah. September's just holding on in there, isn't it? Which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I first met you, it was about a year and a half ago-ish, I would have thought. I knew Lauren's your husband for much longer than that. And in particular, I think through the Brexit period, I got to know Lauren's quite well in terms of campaigning for Remain and also, just the impact of what Brexit's done. You both live in the Netherlands now. You don't live here any longer, which is a real shame because I wish I could see you both. And then the pandemic's happened, which has meant that coming to the UK is even harder than it was previously. But I do hope we can see each other again. It would be cool to do so. But I know your story is particularly inspiring and interesting. And you've been on a real journey the last 2 years, haven't you, in terms of your health? So should we just go back, before we go back to a couple of years ago and what happened to you health-wise, can I just go through your childhood and your story, really, and your relationship with food growing up?
Yeah. Well, I was born 1 month premature, so I started off as a small baby, but that didn't last very long. I've basically struggled from as long as I can remember, always feeling hungry, always looking for sugary food, and not very keen on vegetables and meat. So very quickly I was told, oh, just make yourself a sandwich if you don't like our cooked meals.
Right.
My parents tried to sort of keep it under control, so they sort of measured out my food intake and were very aware of it. And I was taken to several dietitians and doctors, and whatever I tried, nothing ever worked to lose weight. So then when I met Lawrence and we started living together and I was in control over my portions and whatever I ate, that's when the real problems started because I lost control completely. So,
What were your parents like in terms of help? Was it helpful with the food, or was it controlling? I mean, there's so much psychology behind food as well, isn't there? It's not just fuel. It definitely is not just fuel or non-food versus food that we're eating. There's also the psychology of our relationships and the psychology of control sometimes, or support or nurturing. So what was that relationship like for you?
I think in their own way they were trying. I've got two sisters who don't have much of a weight problem. They're a bit older, they're struggling a bit, but it was never to the extreme it is with me. I always felt like I was treated differently, that they were more focused on my eating and my portion. So that didn't feel very fair. And especially my dad was sort of always making me feel like it was my own fault. If I just tried harder, I wouldn't be in the position I was in. So I remember a lot of arguments and stress over that when I was growing up. So
in a way, you have the whole kind of moral individual responsibility argument thrown at you from a young age, which is so cruel, isn't it?
Yes.
I didn't have that to that extent, but my grandmother was quite rough, saying, why does he eat more? Why does he? And you think, looking back, actually, some of my cousins, they're like really thin, they could chuck down anything down their throats. And I'm sure I haven't seen them for a few years now with the pandemic, but I'm sure they're skinny as the last time I saw them.
Yes.
And, me on the other hand, I'm just eating the same food as them and I'm getting bigger. And it is interesting that, isn't it? There are individual differences, but I don't think it's a moral characteristic at all.
No, because I was fed the same things my sisters were eating and I got big and they didn't. And I remember being told by doctors and dietitians, well, you're not sticking to the plan, then you're probably using your pocket money to buy sweets. And that was something that didn't even occur to me to do that. So, it was, especially growing up, it was eating the same things as my sisters did, and I was getting bigger and they weren't. And for my dad, he would gain a bit of weight, and then he would make his portions a bit smaller, and then he would lose the pounds that he gained very quickly. So for him, losing weight was fairly easy. So he didn't understand that for me, it was really hard. And instead of being supportive about it, he was actually quite cruel about it. So that didn't help.
And then the way you saw yourself. So this is what I find really interesting. Now, not to give too much away about the ending of this podcast, but you're now somebody who's within potentially, what you just said to me before the recording, you could, if you're not careful, go a bit underweight, which is incredible. Your doctors are now saying, just be careful. You're completely at the lower end of average now. Just don't go underweight. But considering you've had a life of seeing yourself as being one thing, and maybe you haven't defined yourself in those terms, but many of us do. We see ourselves by our body shape, and we get known to be a body shape, and now you're not. So, did you sort of see yourself as, well, this is just the sort of person I am. I am a bigger person. This is reality. Did that not come into your thinking at all?
That's interesting, because I think I learned very quickly to not really care about it. I was never somebody who could go on binges or eat too much and then feel guilty afterwards. I locked that away. I didn't want to think about it. And now looking back at some pictures, I was like, wow, is that really me? For some reason, my mind didn't let me process at the time that I really was that big. I mean, obviously I knew, but it didn't feel like it. So I would be shocked whenever I sort of caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror or in pictures or in windows, shop windows. And I was like, oh, is that really me?
Yeah, I've done that with myself. I look at someone and I think, who's that guy? Oh, that's me. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's not how I picture myself, but.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess in a way that made it easier, because I never felt like really all that horrible about it. But it didn't. And it wasn't helpful either, because, well, you stop looking for answers at some point, really.
Yeah. Would you say that meeting Lawrence, and I don't want to put words in your mouth because I know this man and I think he's a wonderful person, but would you say that Lawrence in a way was like, the right person, the right time, because he is, he's just a loving person. He sounds very different to your childhood experience with your parents.
Yeah. He, we met when I was 16 and he was 19. So we've been together for a very, very, very long time, coming up to 35 years next year. So that's a very long time. Yes. And I mean, he's seen me at all varied stages of weight, and to him, it never mattered. I mean, I was the one he loves, and no matter what size, shape, he still does. So that was, in a way, it was very nice, because I always felt very secure, never worrying about, oh, is he going to leave me if I gain more weight or whatever. But it also didn't actually spur me on to do something about it. But then you have to lose weight because you want to lose weight. You can't do it for anybody else.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I agree with that completely. And I think, I personally think it's really good when good people find each other. I think it's beautiful. However, change comes from the individual about their health. That's exactly what it's all about. So, okay, let's just go through then a little bit of your story in terms of, you're now in your kind of like late teenage years, early 20s, until a few years ago. What was going on in your health story, and what things were you trying to do to lose weight? Because I know you said to me before you were trying different methods and to varying degrees of not success, which I think was not your fault, but the way that these programs are set up.
Yeah, well, I've done Weight Watchers, obviously. I've done the shakes, meal replacement, any diet you can think of, really. And then we moved to the UK because Lawrence had a job there, and I followed and started work there as well. And then my weight blossomed up until about I was at 575 pounds at my highest weight. And that was the point where I thought, I can't do this anymore. I was nearly 30 years old. I was like, I'm not going into my 30s like this, because I was struggling I was working full time still, but I was struggling doing the basic things like walking, back and to my car and back, and going up and down the stairs in the house and cleaning and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not going to be doing this for much longer. So it's do or die, basically. So I went to my GP and she agreed that I could have a gastric bypass. So I had one in Oxford in 2002.
Can I just ask on that then? Did they say anything about nutrition or food? Did anyone say about changes?
No.
Was it literally, that's one thing over there, we don't worry about nutrition and food, just surgically change yourself and then you can eat the food you're already eating? There's no change in diet at all?
No, not at all. I find that weird. I didn't have to go to any counselling or see a dietitian before or afterwards. And
really?
I remember actually that I asked beforehand, do I need to do anything in preparation for this surgery? And he said, yeah, just enjoy yourselves one last time.
Really? Wow. Yes. Wow. So you encouraged to binge before you do it because it's the last time you can.
Yes. I mean, this was 2002. I'm sure it's changed a lot since then. But, and I remember having had this surgery, 20 years nearly.
Okay, in my head, it's like yesterday, 2002.
I know what you mean, yeah. So, I was in hospital for 3 weeks because they did open surgery. So they opened me up all the way. I have a big scar. And so I was in hospital for 3 weeks to make sure I healed all right. And then I was sent home with the staples still in my stomach, like the wound. And all I got was like an A4 sheet of paper with some instructions, and that was it. I needed to be able to walk up and down the stairs in the hospital, and when I was fit enough to do that, they sent me home. And then I had checkups, but mainly to see if I was doing okay physically, not so much with regards to weight loss or diet or anything. So that was quite surprising to me as well.
So when you had that, then I'm just thinking, like, did you start feeling like you could eat straight away? I mean, because your stomach must be recovering from quite dramatic surgery. So can you not eat anything for like a while you're on a drip or something? I mean, when does your stomach ready to have anything?
The first 3 weeks in hospital, well, the first few days you can't have anything other than a bit of liquid, and then they move you on to like a liquid diet, so you get everything pureed and like baby food basically, and that's really boring because everything tastes bland. And then after 3 weeks you can get some solid foods in you again, but you have to chew it very well and make sure that you don't have big chunks of food because that will get stuck in your little new stomach. So,
and then do you feel hungry, or is it literally because the hunger response is dependent on the stomach size being empty?
Apparently there's some sort of hormone that causes you to feel hungry, and that with a gastric bypass that gets put aside for a while, but it comes back again. I wasn't aware of that beforehand. So for a year I didn't feel hungry at all, and then it came back. I felt hungry again. Some people,
the leptin starts kicking back in. Because I mean, like you say, they're hormonal responses. So I was kind of confused, thinking like, how would you not feel hungry? But there must be a connection there. That's amazing. But this gastric band didn't work, right? I mean, it did for a while, but these things, I hear this from a lot of people. It seems to be a temporary fix, not a permanent solution.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I never should have had it, because if I wasn't a person who ate huge portions once or twice a day, I wasn't binging as such. I was eating smaller portions.
I'll ask you that question. People normally say when you go to keto low carb, what do you eat? But I want to know, if it's okay, what were you eating in a normal day back then? Because I honestly believe that it could be microbiome related, it could be genetic, it could be a mixture of the two, it could be lots of different factors as to why some people, I include myself in this, can make fat very, very efficiently and very, very easily. If fat was an expensive commodity, we'd be millionaires. Do we make it like that, you know?
Indeed,
other people, your sisters, my sisters for that matter, they don't. They seem to be able to eat the same food as me and not have that. So would you mind sharing with me what you're eating when you were putting on the weight?
Well, lots of bread, because I still didn't like warm cooked meals. So lots of, like 8 slices of bread a day, starting with 4 in the morning for breakfast, 4 for lunch, and then in the evening, whatever was being made. But the evenings was where I struggled most, because then I would go on these prowls trying to find anything I could eat, and that was usually like chocolate, crisps, sugar and fat basically, and salt. So cheese.
Which makes your brain just completely buzz, right? I mean, that combination.
Yes. Yeah.
There's been surveys done where they've looked at just eating carbs. You don't tend to crave them if it's just a piece of dry bread. It's not actually that sort of thing you'd crave. Well, I wouldn't necessarily. If it's steak, I've never craved steak, although I adore the stuff. But if you have a steak sandwich with butter in it, then suddenly you've got a combination that your brain goes crazy for, right?
Yeah. For me, it would be peanut butter sandwiches or sandwiches with chocolate sprinkles, which is a very Dutch thing.
Oh, right. Okay. So sugar as well.
Yeah, it's sugar.
Okay.
And So
would you ever consider it an addiction in some ways, or a food addiction?
Yeah. And I think I've looked into it, and I find it so interesting that it is very difficult to eat 2,000 calories in healthy food, whereas if you try and be unhealthy and eat 2,000 calories, you'll have done it by lunchtime.
Yes,
like it's a chocolate bar, a bag of crisps, and you're done basically. Well, you're getting very close to it anyway. So it's that just amazes me. If you want to try and fill up on broccoli, you have a lot of broccoli for 2,000 calories. You can't do it. So.
But I also think that we sometimes focus too much on the meal. And I personally, from my own story now, realize that it's actually the pattern that particular food sets off in me. So, I'll give it a good example. I had an onion bhaji at the weekend, just an onion bhaji. I mean, for those people who aren't so familiar with British food, British Indian food, the onion bhaji is basically like a ball of onions with like a type of flour around it. I don't know, I think it's lentil flour. I don't know what it is, but anyway, or chickpea flour, something like that. So they make it with this in this flour. I had that once on Friday night or Saturday, I can't remember when it was, and that was it. I was then craving it again, and then I was thinking, well, how bad is bread in comparison to that then? And I didn't have any bread. I'm glad I didn't, because I know that I'd have gone on a slippery slope very quickly. So the pattern that food sets you up in a meal could mean that you're eating a really bad choice a week later because of what you had the week before. And that's how I work. And I think when you get the pattern right, each meal itself doesn't make a huge difference, but it means that the pattern is set. So if I have steak and a few green veggies, then I know the next day I'm more likely to have the same thing, and it's going to be a good pattern for me that I choose. So I just noticed that. And I think spiraling up and down in terms of choice is very, very easy to do. And it's then years you think, oh, now I've achieved the goal weight I wanted. So you've had 2 years where you've just done that now. Or you've had 2 years where it's gone the direction you didn't want it to go in. And you suddenly realize all these little choices concertinaed up to make that happen.
And it's scary how easily the body gets back to craving certain things. And as you said, you only have to feed it a little bit. And before you know it is going, oh, give me sugar, give me chocolate, give me whatever.
Or worse, let's reward the body.
Yes.
And this is dangerous.
Yes.
Let's have a little reward for all the good work we've done, because we're like a child inside. We need that pat on the head from our mum or dad to give us a chocolate bar. So I'm sure you've seen this as well. I think it's really sad. I've come across this a bit now. And I say sad in a way that I'm feeling compassionate to the people. Sometimes people go on a big transformation journey and then they start putting the weight, or they make suboptimal choices after that. And I think there's a treat reward system that we have. And I think we'll be very careful of that and saying, is this a lifestyle change for the rest of my life? Or is it a temporary period where I've achieved the beach body, and then in September, October, November, I don't care again? And you've got to be careful, haven't you? I think it's got to be long-term health for your brain, for your blood sugar levels, for all parts of your body, not just like a weight fixation thing.
But we are conditioned. We are conditioned to think that any celebration comes with lots of food, and you can't have a birthday party without cake or without crisps or without. And I still feel a bit like that, but I'll make the better choices. We either have your cakes or I make a low carb cake myself. So
exactly, and that's the thing, isn't it? There are choices there now, and that's what I want to help people with Deliciously Guilt-Free to do. Yeah, you're right. Okay, and on that point, I'm just going to stop now for a little talk from Dan Grief, our sponsor.
Incredible.
So good.
Delicious, really.
Delicious.
Yum.
Really good.
Hi, everyone, and we're back again. We just had a little change in some of the technical stuff here because Ilja's mic was playing up, so she might sound a little bit different. And if you watch her on YouTube right now, you'll see she's now got bigger ears because she's got these big earphones on. Hi, Ilja, welcome back. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Right, so we just went through up to that point. You're talking about your gastric bypass, and and the numerous kind of different dietary plans and stuff that I'm sure you were on, which don't work. And let's be fair, most people seem to have some success, and then unfortunately it comes back again with a vengeance. So let's go from there. And I would like to talk, if I may, about 2019 and what a year that was for you, because I got a text from Lawrence on a WhatsApp group I'm in, and he said, I can't come back to the UK because my wife is seriously ill. And I don't know, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it sounded like he was worried he might even lose you. It was that kind of scary at the time. So do you want to just tell us that story?
Yep. Well, I've been suffering with arrhythmia for a long time, like 20 years or so. And it usually goes away by itself because I'm on medication for it. But if it doesn't, I have to go to the hospital to have a cardioversion. That's where they shock your heart back into the correct rhythm.
Wow.
I've had those done 4 times.
What does that feel like? That sounds pretty awful. Shock your heart back into rhythm. I mean,
yes, well, they put you under for a very short period of time. You give you a short anesthetic. But I did ask the doctor, I said, do you actually jump off the bed like you see in films? And he said, no, that's just for dramatic effect. You can't see anything. It's like, okay.
Right, okay.
So that was a bit disappointing.
I don't know if I'm happy or not now. I don't know if
yes, exactly. Yes.
I don't want that to happen to me, but it's interesting to think it might happen to somebody else. But okay.
Yes, yeah, no.
What sort of psycho am I?
No.
Okay, all right then. So you go to have your heart sometimes electrocuted. Shocked.
Yes.
Shocked.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'd had them done, I think 5 times before without any issues. 4 of those times I was on blood thinners, but they changed the protocol. So they said that's no longer advised. So you don't need to be on blood thinners when you have arrhythmia. So I wasn't on them anymore. And the 5th time was no problem. And then the 6th time, it was on the 7th of June. I went to the hospital and they shocked my heart back into the right rhythm, and then they discharged me straight away. So I went home, went about my business, everything fine, went to bed around midnight and tried to plug in my iPad, and I couldn't get the fiddly bit into the iPad, and apparently I dropped it. And Lawrence, who was still downstairs, was sort of coming up to see what was happening. And then he said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm perfectly fine. I'm going to the bathroom and then I'm going to sleep. And he was like, you're not fine. I was like, what are you on about? So I wandered off to the toilet, and he said, I'm phoning the ambulance. And I was like, why?
Lawrence, you're such a killjoy. Let me go to bed, man.
I'm tired. I've had a rough day and I've been to the hospital. I want to go to sleep. So then I was sat on the toilet and I heard him talking to the ambulance people, saying that he suspected I'd had a stroke. And I was like, what's he on about? I'm just going to go to bed soon. And then within 10 minutes, the ambulance arrived while I was still on the toilet with a very long nightgown on, luckily, because, the things that you realize afterwards, I was so... Afterwards, I was mortified. At the moment, I didn't even realize what was going on. So I guess I was a bit of a lucky
could that
break.
be part of the stroke, do you mean? That maybe you weren't as aware of what was happening because you were going through that experience?
Yes, could be, yeah. So the guy said, can you smile for me? Can you talk to me? Can you lift up your arm? And then he said,
mate? A photo? I mean, I'm trying to go to the toilet and go to bed here.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm playing along with you. You're thinking at the time rather than Lawrence who saw what was actually happening. Yeah. Okay.
And then he said, I think your husband's right. I think you are having a stroke. So we're going to take you to the hospital. And I was like, fine. If you think that's necessary, I'll go. And then he said, well, we can't take you down the spiral staircase on the stretcher because we can't turn it with you on it. And then he said, but the fire department's waiting outside. So we're going to lift you out of the upstairs window and get you down that way. And I was like, no, you're not. Yes. Like, no, you're not. So he said, how are you going to go down the stairs? And I said, I'll walk.
But Ilya, you've got a long night dress on. It's fine. We're just going to haul you out the window in a stretcher, and your neighbour's going to see you in your lovely night dress.
Yes, no. I was like, no, I'm not going to be made a spectacle of. So then there was one guy in front of me. I was going down the stairs. The other one was behind me, and very slowly I made my way downstairs. And they were so proud of me when I achieved it. It's like, oh, you did so well. It's like, it was just a staircase, but hey, they lifted me on the stretcher and off we went, sirens blazing, and Lawrence was behind us in a car, and my mum was looking after our son here. And when I got to the hospital, I was met by the neurologist, who examined me a bit, like blood pressure and whatever, heart rate, everything like that. Asked what had been happening during the day, and said normally I would do a CT scan, but you're too big, you can't fit on the machine. So he said, but I am 99.9% sure that it is a stroke and not a bleed, because of the blood clot probably going from your heart into your brain.
Right. So the electric treatment, it was created somehow.
Yes.
It's gone to your brain. Right. Okay.
Yeah. That's why they did the blood clotting medication, the blood thinners beforehand when you have this arrhythmia. Because if you wait more than 24 hours to have the shock, you run the risk of having clots form, and obviously they can travel to your brain or your lungs. You could have a lung embolism, or you could have a stroke.
Yeah.
So he said, I'm pretty sure that that's what's happened, so I want to start you on medication straight away. And I was like, yeah, fine. Still not really believing that it was that severe. And then I was in hospital for 2 days, and then they did an MRI scan, because I luckily did fit in that machine. And still thinking he was going to tell me, well, it was a minor stroke, or it wasn't that serious. He came to show me the results on the computer screen, and there was this big grey whitish area inside my brain. And he said, look, it was a pretty big stroke. And that's when I realized, God, this isn't good.
Yeah.
So I was feeling.
What if you'd gone to bed and Lawrence hadn't noticed you dropped things, hadn't noticed your face, for instance?
Yeah.
I mean,
and at this stage, he was still living in the UK during the week, so he was only home at the weekend. So I was, I was very lucky in the sense that it happened during the weekend, because I would have probably just, if I'd gone to the toilet, and I mean, I could walk down the stairs, so I would have gone back to my bed and would probably have fallen asleep. So who knows? I mean, that's a very scary thought to think about.
Yeah. So thank goodness he was there. So okay then. So then you had the MRI, and they showed you this damage in your mind. So what do they say for treatment? How did it all happen that you then went on this amazing transformation journey?
Yeah. Well, the neurologist said, well, this isn't directly weight related, but obviously your weight doesn't help. And I was like, nope. I've heard that before.
But they say that it annoys me in a way, because it's very easy to then say that without a solution. Do you ever notice that?
Yes.
Yes. I was told by a doctor once, well, you need to lose weight. And you're like, okay, I will. And how then, doctor, do I do that? Move more, eat less. You're like, it's as simple as that, is it? Yes. So I'm just greedy and lazy. That's what you just told me.
Yes.
And if I become less greedy and less lazy, I'll be as perfectly shaped as you are, doctor. Is that what it is? Because it's not that. Because I cycle to work like 5 miles a day, and that's 10 miles in total. So what more do I have to do movement-wise? Yes. And in terms of eating, I'm eating probably the same food that everyone else is. This is back in the day before I knew about low carb. I'm eating the same food as everyone else is. So tell me what more I need to do exactly. And that just annoys me. There's not an answer. Yes. But anyway, sorry, that's my own bugbear there.
Yeah. You're right.
It's your podcast, not mine. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it just reminds me of all those doctors who would, if you said, "Oh, I've cut my finger," but you're overweight. I'm here for my finger, not about my weight. So, and they're all thinking that they're helping you by bringing it up every time, but that doesn't work.
You wouldn't know.
Exactly.
Well. Really?
Is that it? Right.
Yeah. Dan Wiseman said that. He said steak and iron. He said everyone who's got carrying extra weight, and he did for sure. Everyone who's done that knows that they have to lose weight, and they've tried all the diets under the sun. That's just the way it is. It's not a failure of understanding. It's not an ignorance of the fact they have the problem. They just don't. It's not working for them. That's what the problem is, and nobody talks about that. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so the neurologist said, yeah, I agree with you, and I want to do something about it again. I've actually just signed up to this diet plan again. And he said, that's not going to work. I said, well, you tell me what will work then, because I don't know anymore. And then he said, well, actually, I think I might have a solution for you. And I was like, okay. And apparently he had diabetes and said, I've been eating low carb for a while now, and I don't have to use insulin anymore. So for him, that was his health benefit.
Despite everything I just said, I take that back. That medic deserves a massive pat on the back. Brilliant.
I know. Yeah, I know. So he said, yeah, let me set you up with this sports physician that I work with. He was in the same hospital. And so we went to see him as an outpatient, and that was I was released from hospital on the 12th of June, the day before my birthday. And so we went to see him a week or so later, and it turned out that he was one of the founders of this project called From Healthy Village to Healthy Country, where the village that he lives in, together with the local GP, they said, well, we see people gaining weight and living unhealthy lives, and we need to do something about it. So they started this project where they tried to get the whole community involved in low carb eating. So all the shops, the restaurants, the cafes, all came on board. And so they wrote a book about it as well, with recipes and explaining the whole process of what low carb eating is, what you can, what you cannot do. So basically a whole guide of how to get onto this program and onto this lifestyle.
Amazing.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So we went to see him. Lawrence went with me, and I think we've been in there for about 45 minutes, so a long time. He actually was very, very helpful and very willing to explain it all, very with images and with everything. So we knew what we were doing, because it was such a different way of looking at food, and trying to wrap your head around that was very hard, because it's letting go of all the things that you've been taught before about what healthy eating is. And I was like, so I'm not going for skimmed milk or semi-skimmed milk. No, you're not. It's like, wow, that is
bowl
weird.
of rice with nothing in it then, Doc, because that's low fat. Nope. It's the other way around. Get rid of the bowl of rice.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then I said, yeah, I'm willing to give it a go. Why not? So I remember very clear, we started on the 4th of July, because on the 3rd of July we went to the sushi restaurant to have sushi last time. Again, I need to reward myself. Yes.
Yeah, the words from 2002 are still there from the surgeon before your surgery, right?
Exactly. Have one little pig out before you commit. Okay. So and I really enjoyed that sushi, so that was fine. And we started with this plan, and Lawrence was very kindly given paid leave to look after me for a while, and he picked up the meal prep and the cooking, and because I was so tired all the time, I was just happy to be able to get out of bed, take a shower, and then walk downstairs to the sofa.
The stroke's a major thing, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean, you were recovering massively, a massive recovery, should I say, you had to go to for that. So, okay then, so you went through that change, and he was there with you. Now, I remember this from my point of view, that he was saying, my wife is severely ill. I think there was a real risk at the time that we all thought you might pass away, because it sounded really quite serious to us from what he was saying. And he sort of disappeared from the scene in the UK for a long time, which is completely understandable. So that all happened then. And when you started low carb, what did you change in your diet? What was the sort of main changes you made?
Well, it flipped completely. From
the
being
8 bread's gone out the window, right?
Yes, from the bread loving, pasta eating, chips craving, crisps eating person I dropped all of that completely, and I usually go for 2 meals a day now. Unless I have a very long day and I start very early, I will have breakfast, but usually I skip that and go for lunch and an evening meal. We started off being quite strict about it, and I tried to stay under 20 grams of carbs a day. So that was more towards the keto side than the low carb. And I was actually amazed at how easy it was to start it and to stick with it. I've never had any feelings of, oh, I can't do this, or I'm going to eat something that I shouldn't, or it all felt very natural and my body reacted to it quite well. So it was nice
Wow.
to feel this, oh, I don't need to eat anymore because I'm not hungry, and getting that realization back. Because if you overfeed all the time, you don't know whether you're really hungry or if it's your brain telling you you're craving something. I couldn't make that distinction anymore. And now I'm very much aware of when I'm actually hungry, or when I might sort of have I could do with, but I won't because I'm not hungry. I don't need it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's.
It's that beautiful thing. And I think many people come to this realization. You learn how you work for the first time. So
Yes.
instead of being, like completely at the backseat of a roller coaster, not knowing what's going to happen next with your body and your cravings and your desires, suddenly you feel like it all calms down and it's flat and it's easy. And it's like, oh, that's how I worked. I realize now. So if I put that in my body, this is reaction. So if I don't have that in my body, I don't have that problem anymore.
Yeah.
It's really liberating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think it must have been then that winter when Lawrence came back in 2019. And the reason I know that is because we had the general election in 2019 in December, and he came back around that time to help out the general election. And that's when he first said to me, oh, do you run Deliciously Guilt-Free? And I think he'd found it. This is what I don't know, I could be wrong. I think he found it independently somehow, or maybe he did find out through me. And I find it weird when you know people from different parts of your life and you're like, oh yeah, this is the other part of my life that you don't necessarily know about. And that's kind of how then I got to learn more about your story. So should we talk about those 2 years and then where you ended up? And we've actually got a report here, your scan results, right? So for those who are watching on YouTube, I'm going to show you a report now. So if I add that to our doodah, and I'm just going to go to the report itself, and I can then scroll up and down. So I can't see you now, but I can actually see your report. So where should we go first on this to talk through, but also tell us what this report's all about? Like who made this report, and how did your medical team diagnose and not diagnose? How do they try to treat you?
Yeah, well, the sports physician at some point said, we've got this machine, it's called a DEXA scan, that will scan your whole body, and we can see how your fats and your bones and your muscles are doing. Would you be interested in having them every once in a while so I can see your progress? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So we started those in October 2019, and initially I had them every 3 months, and now they're every 6 months. And they clearly show how my body is doing on this diet, sort of fat-wise, and how my bone structure is doing, how my muscles are doing. Because what you don't want is to lose bone mass or muscle mass, but you want to lose fat. So
that's on that. So many people focus on weight because that's the only metric they kind of notice. Although that's not true because you could measure, but people focus on weight. But actually, what I love about these DEXA scan, did you say?
DEXA, yeah.
The thing I love about the DEXA scan is that it actually gives you the breakdown. So some people might look at the scales and think they're not losing weight. But actually, you can be shown how you're increasing muscle or bone mass and reducing your fat quantity at the same time, and the weights remaining exactly the same. So I think this is really interesting. So if we go down then into the report, tell me where you'd like me to stop. Do you want to stop on the pictures, the scan?
Yeah, those. Yeah.
Right. Look at that. So just to let those people who have seen the who are kind of listening to this, not watching, I do apologize, but if you go to the UK Low Carb Facebook group, we actually have this there, don't we? I think you posted it recently.
Yes,
and I'll post it again so it's a bit more clear at the top of the screen or something. So these are your scan pictures, and I can see the sort of, what I find bizarre is I can see the shape of you as a human being, and I can see the pinky fat around you. Yeah. And that's clearly decreasing as we go along. And then it goes from the inside part as yellow and it goes to green. Do you want to just describe what's happening there?
Yeah. So the first one was October 2019, and I I couldn't even fit on the table because I had to restart the scan several times because I wasn't in the right position on the table. So it feels like a 3D printer where they sort of go over your head and over your whole body with this. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes where you have to lie flat on this very hard table.
Right.
So if they have to restart several times, the first time I was on that table for about an hour before they could get it all done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, is after 3 or 4 months of keto. And
yes. I'd already lost about 20 pounds by then easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was worse when I started. And then if you go down the line, you can see all the different scans because I've had 6 now, and you can see the red sort of gradually but surely disappearing. So there's not a lot of actual fat on me now. And the yellow bits are sort of like average. And what you want is to have the green because that's the lean mass. So
wow.
The last one I was particularly pleased with because all my vital organs are now in the green, whereas up until October 2020, even though I'd lost a significant amount of weight by then, my vital organs were still not in the green; they were in the yellow. So
that's basically what do you call it? Visceral fat as well inside.
Yes.
You'd have had around your organs, and now I mean you're really green inside to the point where it used to be really your knees and your brain were fine, and now it's like you can see your whole body form is green. That's amazing. Wow. How do you? I mean, I'm looking at these scans, and I saw you when you were a bit heavier because about a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself when you see that and you realize that's you? What do you think? I mean, where do you start with that?
Well, it's very interesting to see it on paper like this. It's like that's actually me, and I can see myself just going like that. So it's very bizarre, but
it's amazing.
Yeah,
you should be so proud of yourself.
Yes,
amazing.
I am. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, so we've got a few charts and things to look at as well. So I'm now showing a few different graphs on the screen here. Do you want to just talk through from the left to right what each of these show us?
Yeah, so the first one with the blue line, that's the weight loss, where you can see it going down and keep going down. So, and the middle bit is the amount of fat on my body, that's going down as well. And the last one is the amount of lean mass on my body. And I don't really know why there's a dip and it goes back up again. I'm not sure why.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? I just wondered, so it goes really up to June 20, then October 20, it's quite low, and then February 21, it's gone up again. So, I wonder why. I mean, there must be a reason for that, I'm sure. Maybe the way they're scanned, or maybe there's something that happens in the body that's what happens. I don't know. Were you exercising as much? Do you know?
Well, as part of my recovery, I had to go to physio, and they did exercising there, and then that stopped because of COVID.
Right. Actually, if you think about it, that was June 20 to October 20. So maybe in the Netherlands you had a spike then. I don't know, but no, I'm not. I'm not a doctor at all or anything. I wouldn't have a clue what I'm looking at here. So. Okay, so it's interesting to look at, though, and the fact you get this data on yourself is amazing.
Yes.
And you can actually track your progress. And I guess you could see this as you were going through the process. So they would show you your fat percentage, and you could see that going down gradually and think, I want to carry on that trajectory in that case.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, and then if we scan the rest of it. So now this is, did you say your average, the black line in the middle of this next chart is kind of the average for somebody at different ages, 20 to 100 at the bottom there.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah. Well, you never know. And where you are right now, though, you're actually under the line, right, for weight. Is that correct?
I think the purple is like the acceptable line, and the black line within the purple is the ideal, I think. But if you look at percentage in fat, that's 33.6%, and apparently for a woman my age the normal range is between 33 and 37. So that's the point where the doctor said if you're going to lose more fat percentage-wise, you run the risk of getting into the low end of the scale. It's like, what?
That's
That's
amazing.
never happened before. So yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic. And then if you just go down here, I think you said there's some. Oh, this is just where they give you like the different parts of your body, so
Yeah,
it's not
that's
as
like
important.
that's the whole body, the one on the top, well, the left one now,
This one
and
here,
you can see, for the whole, that's going down, and then the lean mass, that's sort of going up, which is perfect, and then the fat is dropping down.
Green is lean mass, blue is weight, and red
yeah.
fat. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Gaheel, is that weight?
Yeah, that's the whole. The whole.
Right.
The whole body.
Major.
Lean. Yes.
I am butchering your language. I do apologize.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to leave it at this one here because that is just absolutely striking. And, this image tells you a whole health journey. And what I think is interesting is, you can remember each of those scans and, you could have. It's not the actual scan day that's important. It's what happened between them, isn't it? It's consistently doing the same thing with your food, with your nutrition, day in, day out. Did you? I could ask this, like it's not my business, but did you have cheat days, or did you just carry on being consistent the whole time?
I tend to not have cheat days. I will have the occasional small treat every once in a while. Our son is not a fan of low carb eating. He's autistic, so he's quite fussy about his food. So he's always like, I don't want that low carb stuff. Okay. Well, he likes the low carb brownies. He'll eat that, and he'll eat your cakes because a cake is a cake. So, but so every once in a while he'll have chips, and then I have to be honest, I can't sort of resist. And then when he's walking past me with his plate, I'm like, stop, and I'll take one or two of his chips, and that'll do me, and that's fine. So yeah, I know even though I think I've got this covered and I've been doing it for over 2 years now, so I'm accepting this as a way of life, I've known from the past that I need to be careful, and it's a slippery slope, isn't it? If you go and think, I can do this for one day or for an afternoon, and then before you know, it's like, I'll restart again tomorrow. And before you know it, I'll start next week, I'll start next month. And I don't want to go down that route.
Yeah. It's Christmas soon, so I'll wait until Christmas.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's my birthday after that. I'll wait until that. Oh, it's that wedding after that. And then another year's gone past. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it has to be that way. And I think, if you know that's what happens for you, and it's very personal, but I'm exactly the same. I know that my meal choice will affect my next meal choice. So choose wisely for this one, for the next one as well. That's amazing. So if you want to go and have a look at this picture because you're listening and you're not watching, then you can go and check out UK Low Carb on the Facebook group. And actually, I'm going to write a blog post about this. I just haven't got. I tell you what, I'll write it now. The uklowcarb.com/Ilja. There you go. So ILJA, and then you'll be able to see this image as well because I think it's so inspiring. Absolutely.
It might be interesting to know that the first image was me at about 450 pounds.
Okay.
And I am now at 250.
Wow. So,
and
what's that in, do you know what that is in kilograms or stone?
Yeah. It's the left one is about 30 stone, I would imagine. And then the last one is about 18.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And in kilos, is that about 100-ish kilos?
No, I'm now at 115.
115. And what was it originally, do you think?
Well, the highest I was, but that's before my first bypass, was 260, and this is around 205, 2010.
So it's about 100 kilos gone as well. Amazing. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm very close to 100 pounds weight loss on keto. So yeah.
Wow. So there you go, people. If you want inspiration, if you want to think, where you might be now, where you want to be, if you've got a goal, then look at this because it shows you consistency, finding out what works best for you, and cutting your carbs and sugar and processed food. And look where it gets you. It gets you to being a healthy individual, which, I hope this adds years of happy life to your life because, you don't know that person on the left, what their future might have been. That's the reality, isn't it?
It didn't look good.
No.
No.
And it must be incredible for you to realize you're not that person, that you actually are the person on the
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
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 Fantastic. Okay, then. So I was going to take that off the screen there so we can see you again. I just want to know then. So say, for instance, somebody here who is, who is that maybe person on the left-hand side. They've been seen as being a certain way for the rest of their lives. What advice do you have for them for where they could start and what they could do to change their lives?
I think the most important step is to decide that you're going to do it and commit yourself to it. And it doesn't even have to be perfect at first. Just, for me, it was preparation as much as anything, because it was such a different way of looking at food and meal prep. And as I said, so I remember reading a lot about it. I got the book that my sports physician wrote and we read it. So it started to make sense and I knew what I was getting myself into. And even though we try to cook from scratch most of the times, that's not always possible. So I spent a lot of time looking at labels in the supermarket, going for how many carbs per 100 grams are in there. Is that acceptable or not? And so shopping took me a long time initially. Now I know, and it's fine. I know what aisles I can skip and what aisles I can occasionally take things from. So that was very important. Take your time and be prepared to spend a bit more time in the kitchen, because it is a tiny bit more time consuming to make meals compared to what it was before. And think about, if you're going out, what your choices are going to be. And if you don't think there are any, make sure that you take your own choices with you. Like if we stay in a hotel and I don't think that they'll have a lot, I'll take low carb crackers with me and just use them for my breakfast or my lunch, or I take some sandwiches low carb with me. And I've never met anybody that was making a problem with that sort of in restaurants or.
Yeah. I've noticed as well, people are pretty understanding, aren't they?
Yes.
Quite often the excuse comes from us, not from reality of the situation, So I personally am okay not having things like low carb breads because I don't particularly crave them, and if I have them, I might be cravey for actual bread. But when Besma does, it's fine. They're like, yeah, no problem at all. We can take your fried breakfast and toast your own bread and,
exactly,
have your egg in that instead of our bread. That's fine. And people are generally okay with that, aren't they?
And I think what was really important for me was I discussed this with my doctor. I said, well, there's certain things that I can't do without, so I'm not willing to make sacrifices. And he's like, what are they? And I said, well, I can't do without sugar-free chewing gum. I like a can of Diet Coke every once in a while, like one a day. And I like my cappuccinos too much. And I don't like oatmeals or almond milk, or no, that doesn't taste right to me. So I thought about it, I researched it, and now if I have cappuccino, if I can, I'll use full-fat lactose-free milk, which has a very low carb count, and that'll do me. And he was like, well, you do what works for you. I mean, this is going to be something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So if you cut everything out and you feel like you're not enjoying yourself anymore, that's not worth it. So,
well, it's not sustainable, is it? You've got to make it sustainable that you can actually live with. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, things like sugar-free gum and Diet Coke don't actually increase my sugar cravings, or I mean, I don't feel hungry after I use them. If anything, they actually help me from eating anything. So for me, they work.
It's all the individual. I completely agree with you. So sometimes people say, should you have deliciously guilt-free because people should give up sweet taste? And I'm like, well, if they want to, then of course they should. I would never say either way.
No.
However, a lot of people just want to have as normal a Western diet without the sugar spikes, without the insulin, without the crazy stuff. And I've got why should they be different? I don't understand that. If they don't want to be, why should they be? If they want to give up sweet taste, fine, absolutely fine. But I think it's got to be a personal choice. And the more choice you give people, like I said about low carb bread, it's a great idea. If people can then have that and not normal bread and they're fine with it, then fine. For me personally, I don't eat it a lot because I don't really want it. But that's just their choice, isn't it? And I think it's good to choose the lifestyle you want to live, because you've got to live it, and you clearly have for the last 2 years. And look at the results you've got because of that.
it always makes me laugh because there's some of these groups where people will post questions like, am I allowed this or that? And it always sort of brings out the rebel in me wanting to respond. Of course you're allowed it. You're your own boss. Nobody tells you what to do.
Nobody
But
tells you what to do. Yeah.
that's the way to
Yeah.
get kicked out of groups. So I don't do that anymore.
There's also, I think, something else I've realized, and that's that the food industry is not one big, like, homogenous thing. So for instance, you get big food where food's made in factories. I'd say that's made purely for profit only. But you get these small companies who actually care about what they do because they eat it themselves. That's a very different thing, isn't it? And I'd say be not just aware of what's on the label, but also be very aware of where it's come from. If it's come from a place that makes it from a place of love because it's for their own families, and DGF is that for us, then that's different to some scientists in a lab who've literally put the chemical combination to say that's going to be the jackpot for us and our bonus this year. That's a very different thing, isn't it? I think be aware of where you're buying from as much as what it is you're buying from that place. And then you're more likely to be, you can rely on it's being a true, accurate reflection of the diet you want to follow. I agree to that.
And don't freak out if you do make a mistake every once in a while. It's not the end of the world. It's because I was on this diet for 3 weeks and then I didn't lose any weight for 3 weeks after that. So I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. This isn't going to work for me. So I talked to my doctor and he said, that's perfectly normal. Just stick with it. You're doing everything right. And then the next week, my weight dropped significantly again. And I have these plateaus every once in a while. And I know not to get worked up about it. And I mean, don't go on the scales every day. That's not going to work. Just do it once a week or once every fortnight and measure yourself. Because if you don't lose weight, you will probably still be losing inches. So
Dr. Naiman says, and I think this is a great guide, he does the waist measurement compared to the height. And then he says the waist measurement should be under half what the height is. And if it's not, then you need to work on that. But keep measuring the waist measurement because actually that's just a sign your body's changing shape. And I think that's really, really valid. But I think also the idea that we just lose weight is like a complete, consistent line is very unbiological. That's physics, isn't it? I can't see that in a human body or any animal body. The body's like, whoa, we're losing fat here. Let's just let's heal ourselves. Let's just work out what's going on.
Slow down, people.
We're not dying. Okay, we can lose a little bit more. The body's a very clever thing. It's not just going to say, that's why the whole just calorie in, just calorie out is nonsense. Because if that was literally a formula, you could have these real straight diagonal lines going down with every single human being losing weight in the same way. That doesn't happen. You'll lose weight in different ways to me, and I'll put on weight different ways to you. That's just how we are differently. And microbiome is part of that. There's so many factors that we're learning about. Okay, then. So I was going to ask you another question, and well, actually, I've got two, and one's a real humdinger. So I was going to ask you about a food recipe, or sorts of meals you might be cooking, and anything you could recommend to us to think about. But also, I was going to say, a big part of major weight loss, if someone loses weight, somebody who hasn't got a lot of weight to lose, then they might get told, you look fabulous, great, well done. Somebody who's changed their look completely like you have, it's like when you see a teenager and you haven't seen them for like 5 years, like, whoa, different human being. When you've had huge weight loss, there's that kind of change in people's reactions to you. Has anyone been acted differently to you now, or has anyone said anything, or what was their reaction to you with this weight transformation?
Well, we live in quite a small village where we have this local cafe that I go for my cappuccinos and have done for years and years and years. So I know a lot of people from there and they know me. And I've only had really nice reactions, I have to say. So people sort of, and some of them will ask me lots and lots of questions about how I've done it. And if I'm being too nosy, just tell me. I'm like, no, I'm perfectly fine with sharing whatever you want to know. And
you give a podcast link now.
Exactly.
You got the whole thing recorded. It's evergreen. It's going to be working for you when you're asleep. So just share that.
Yeah. But it was funny. I went to see my friend 2 weeks ago, and her mum was there as well, and she hadn't seen me for a year and a half, 2 years. So she looked me up and down and she's like, are you Ilja? Like,
really? Yes, she didn't even know you're definitely her, because that's all she'd known you as, I suppose.
Yes. And then last week we went to my nephew, to my cousins for a barbecue, and his wife jokingly said, "Oh, I need to introduce myself." And like, who are you? Like,
well, you haven't changed. I still know who you are.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I haven't
amazing.
been to the hairdresser since before COVID, so I've got very long hair now, so that throws people off as well. And they sort of mistake me for my sister when they see me from behind. So I don't know whether to apologize to her for that or be happy about it. Yeah.
Just out of interest, and I assume their sisters will never hear this. Are they heavier than you now, or are they going to be heavier than you? Because that must be an interesting paradigm shift where
Yes.
they were the skinny ones who didn't have to work for it. Now suddenly the heavier sister might be the thinnest of the three. I mean, I'm not trying to set up a family dispute.
No.
When it's all kick off at Christmas when they hear
And
this.
they want the
I just
link,
wonder.
so they will see this. So I have to.
Let's
be
leave that then.
careful.
So
yeah. No. I mean, they're fine. One of them has just given up low carb eating because she couldn't do it anymore. The other one is still on this life plan, and I think I'm at the point now where my BMI is still too high, but that's because of all the excess skin I've got. So
Right.
once that's sorted out, I might be thinner than they are, skinnier than they are. But
wow, because I've heard
doesn't
that
really
fasting is really good for that, isn't it? Fasting
yes,
is an amazing way for loose skin to be
it
cleaned up
is.
by the
But
body and
if
be
you've
used
put
to
your body
autophagy.
through so much as I have, that's not going to do you much good, I'm afraid, because I've went up from very high, back down, went up again. So all the yo-yoing isn't. Yeah. So there's no way on earth that is all going to go away by itself, sadly.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, but the main thing is you're healthy and you've got a whole different future ahead of you because of that, which is really important. So the last thing I'll ask you then is what sort of meal choices do you make now? And could you share like a recipe or something that you could knock together in the kitchen, which would be a keto / low carb thing you could eat?
Well, one of our favorites is salmon with stir fry, and then the stir fry tends to be like beans, mushrooms, sort of a bit oriental flavored vegetables. You can buy them pre-sliced and pre-packed here, so that's very convenient for a quick meal. And we use a bit of teriyaki sauce on it just to give it a bit of flavor, and that's cooked in about 10 minutes. So if we need something quick but still healthy and delicious, that's what we go for. And if we've got more time, we sort of scour the internet for low-carb recipes. And one that we all really like, and that Luca likes as well, is sort of Italian meatballs with stir-fried spinach in tomato sauce with mozzarella. That's very good. And we eat it without pasta. And for him, I cook some pasta with it, so it's a perfect meal. And every once in a while we make a fathead dough pizza. That's always good.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Very, very filling, right?
Yes.
You can eat normal slices of pizza until the sun comes home. With a fat head, you're like, I'm going to stop after 2 slices.
The first time we made it, I was like, oh, that's a very tiny pizza, and we had half of it. It was like, oh God.
But low carb food is like that, isn't it? That's why, like DGF cakes, for instance, sometimes people say they're quite small, and you're like, that's because you eat the flour rubbish version. Eat that; it's just nuts. You're going to be really full afterwards. That's just
that was funny when we brought them home from our last trip, and I gave some to my sisters. It's like, tiny. Try them. Oh, I've had enough.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's inspirational. You know what? I'm so proud of you and what you've done. You're amazing. You really are, and I really think it's like in many of these cases, not only is it the person who transformed their lives, but now your story can help transform other people's lives. And I think there must be a mindset thing that many of us go through at different times, and maybe you have the same, of seeing yourself in a certain way, but you're not a prisoner to that thought as much as we make ourselves. With very simple, consistent change over time, you can achieve some amazing things, and that's what these scans show you. So to put that scan up there and everyone see that, so it's just so incredible.
Yeah. And it's never too late to start, because I was thinking, well, I'm nearly 50. Why should I even bother? I'm like, I could live to be 80 or 90, so that's still a long way to go. And I hope I've got that long. I mean,
but also,
I've given myself a better chance now.
You have given yourself a better chance, but also what a weird thought. That life is the only life you have. Why would you make it shorter or worse? It's interesting, isn't it? What our minds can tell us. Change the paradigm, you change the results, you change your life. It's incredible. Yeah. So Ilja, thank you so much for coming on UK Low Carb today. It's been a privilege to share your story.
Thank you.
And I really look forward to when you come back to the UK, to Cambridge, and see you both again. and we can have a day out maybe and have
nice.
some cake and sit by the river and have maybe a keto picnic. Okay.
That sounds lovely. That sounds like a plan. We'll do that.
All right. Take care, Ilja. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.